friends, it's Jessica from Three Rivers Homestead, and welcome to week 3 of the Three Rivers Challenge. This is the Pantry Challenge that I do every January and February, and I'm hosting it here on YouTube and on Instagram. Check out the hashtag below, and you can find other channels that are also participating, and you can see all the wonderful content they're putting out, sharing ideas and encouragement for you in this kind of no-spend challenge, an opportunity to use up all the food that you've preserved in the last year. And I've got a baby down here. Before we get started, I wanted to remind you that I am not a professional cook. I did not go to culinary school. I'm not a chef. I barely knew how to cook anything when I got married. And add on top of that all of the challenges in dealing with my son's anaphylactic dairy and peanut allergies, as well as my own health challenges. And our food isn't always perfect. We're just doing the best we can. I'm a mom with 9 people to feed on a budget. And so my meals are very simple. I know they're not perfect. I know my techniques for cooking them are not perfect because I've taught myself and just had to learn as I go out of necessity. And so when I share my meals, I'm not sharing them to brag about how wonderful and amazing they look or whatever. I'm just sharing to encourage you to say that you can do it too. You just try. It's really about filling bellies around here and doing it as healthy as possible with wonderful homegrown, home-preserved ingredients, and just trying to provide them with optimal nutrition for as low of a price as possible. I'm trying to do this frugally because we do have a budget as a family of 9. So I share this to encourage you, to let you know that you don't have to be perfect. Your meals don't have to look like they came out of a magazine. They just have to fill bellies, and your family just has to like them. That's it. My family enjoys what we eat. It may not be for you, but that's okay. So, all right. With that said, I'm going to go ahead and share our meals for this week. Uh-oh, baby just shut the gate. We had some added challenges this week. We have been sick, and praise the Lord, everybody's doing much better now. We're all just kind of resting over this weekend and getting ready to get back to normal next week. But last week, I had a really tough time sticking to the meal plan just because of energy levels and helping to deal with children that weren't feeling 100%. So we did the best we can, and you're going to see that reflected in the meals that I'm sharing. As always, the menu plan will be in the description, and you can find timestamps if you want to skip around pinned in the comments. And I will try my best to share recipes. And if you want a recipe for something that I don't share, just make sure you email me. That will be in the description, our email address, and I will do my best to get that information to you. So, all right, with that said, let's get to it. Starting Sunday with some pancakes. This is our basic pancake recipe, and I'm going to be using pear juice in place of milk today. I've got all of our dry ingredients here. I doubled the recipe for our family so we would have enough today. Here's the pear juice I'm using. This is just the juice that I drain out of my canned pears, and it gives a lovely flavor to your pancakes if you use it in place of the milk. And then we're using olive oil, some vanilla extract. We had enough fresh eggs today for our pancakes, so we're going to get this all mixed up and ready to go. And then I have a cast iron griddle, but it's a big pain to get out to flip pancakes. So I'm just doing it one at a time in a pan. And as children come down for breakfast, as they wake up in the morning, they get whatever's warm and done. We don't have a big griddle. I used to have one, and then I just decided that I didn't enjoy the Teflon coating on it. I no longer wanted to use that. So now we just flip them one at a time in the cast iron, and that works for us. So they're having maple syrup over their pancakes today. And there we go. Big old stack of pancakes, some maple syrup, some happy kids. And here's a tip. You can use a pizza cutter to cut your pancakes, and that makes it a whole lot easier. My kids love pancakes. We try to have them at least once a week around here. And since it's Sunday, we always have soup on Sundays so that it can simmer while we're doing church. And so we are using some leftover ham steaks and pork roast, just some random ham and broth and drippings that we're going to add to our soup. I have some leftover canned spinach that I need to get out of the fridge. We're going to dump that in. These are some carrots that I just peeled from our storage, our raw carrots. They're looking a little rough there on the ends, but they're fine once you peel them. We've got some potatoes from storage. We are also going to add some parsley. I put parsley in just about everything. We have this garlic and rosemary sea salt mix that I really need to use up. It's been in there for over a year. And we're going to add some bay leaves. We're just going to get all of this in our pot and make a soup out of it. Here's some leftover juice that was from canned butternut squash. That water has nutrition in it and flavor. We're just going to add that to our soup because why not? It was in the fridge and it's delicious. So everything's all chopped and in our pot. I'm just going to add some water to kind of cover everything. And then this will simmer on the wood stove while we do church. Here's what it looked like when it was all done. Just kind of a hearty comfort meal on a really cold Sunday. It has some meat and veggies, really good flavor, lots of gelatin in that broth and in the drippings. And then there's the baby's bowl. He gets a little less broth, so it's less messy. And I'm serving it with some saltine crackers today. Normally, if we're out of saltines, I would make our own crackers, but since we have them, I'm trying to use them up during the pantry challenge. So some of my kids just crumble their crackers up into the soup. Other kids like to kind of use the crackers to scoop out bits from the soup as a spoon. All right, now we're going to work on dinner. We are going to make lasagna tonight, and I'm using bison. Some of you asked more about this ranch that we get our bison from. They are local to Ohio here, Covington, Ohio, and I will have a link to their farm page in the description, so look for that. So we're doing 1 pound of ground bison and then a little over a pound of our homegrown beef. We're going to get this all cooked up. And then for my sauce for the lasagna, we're going to do 1 quart plus 1 pint of tomato sauce. I can my tomato sauce plain so it's a little more versatile, and then we just add flavor to it as we open the jars. Today we're going to add some freeze-dried grape tomatoes that I have. We'll just bulk that up a little bit. We have some garlic scape powder. This is from freeze-dried garlic scapes. Some dehydrated kale from the garden. Here we have some dried basil and then also some dried oregano. We're going to add some onion powder and then, of course, our pink salt. And we'll just get this all mixed together and that'll be our sauce. So I mixed all that together and I just have that on low on the stove kind of warming up. And I do add a little bit of honey to it. My children like it a little sweet, so just a tiny bit of honey. And then for our lasagna noodles, we're once again using Tinkyata brand rice noodles. These are my favorite, or this is my favorite brand of gluten-free pasta. Never gets mushy, it's nice and just a perfect texture. Here we have the cashew pulp that is left over from making homemade cashew milk. I just leave it in the fridge, and when I accumulate enough, I can turn it into some kind of dairy-free cashew type cheese. Today we're going to make it into a ricotta cheese. So I put that into the food processor. I added some oregano, a little bit of lemon juice. I also added some more cashews, and then I had this salad dressing left over from last week. My mom had brought it over with a salad, so we just put a little bit of that in there for some oil and a little bit of garlic flavor. That worked great. We just need a creamy kind of ricotta cheese texture, so this will work. You could add nutritional yeast to this to give it more of a cheese flavor, but it seems to mess with my husband's stomach. So when he's home, we skip the nutritional yeast and just do it plain. Now we're going to start layering our lasagna. I'm not cooking these noodles. This is the first time I tried this and it worked out great. Usually I pre-cooked them, but they were the perfect texture just using them dry. So we're going to layer. We've got the meat, we've got the sauce. We're going to layer in some more kale powder, and we also have that cashew cheese. In the summer, when I make lasagna, I would typically slice up some zucchini or summer squash and do a layer of that, but we'll just sprinkle in kale powder today for a little extra vegetable. The hardest part is getting the cashew cream cheese or the cashew ricotta cheese on, so I just literally scoop it out and spread it right on top of the noodles. And it's definitely a lot easier to do with 2 hands, so I recommend setting down the phone. And there we go. I just cover it with foil, and we're going to bake it on 350 for about 30 to 45 minutes. And then I'm going to serve this with a side of applesauce. This was 2 quarts of home canned applesauce with some cinnamon. And the kids will enjoy that with their lasagna. And there you go. I mean, food definitely isn't as pretty when you don't have cheese sprinkled on top of it, but we do the best we can. We're a dairy-free family, and we're used to it. We've been eating this way for 15 years now, and it just, this is what we're used to. So this was a great meal for a really cold Sunday evening. This warmed us up, the applesauce and the comforting lasagna. I think little John here approved of the meal. He was a happy camper. And then, as always, on Sunday nights, we have popcorn while we watch America's Funniest Videos. It's Monday morning, and today we're going to have some dairy-free biscuits and gravy. So I've got a couple pounds of just salt and pepper. Oh, no, this wasn't salt and pepper. This was sage pork sausage. We're working on that. I'm making my biscuit recipe. I made that for you a couple videos ago, so you can look for that. We're just browning that sausage, and we are going to add some cashew milk to it. And then we're going to thicken that with arrowroot powder. So this is just sausage, cashew milk, arrowroot powder, and then salt and pepper. And then obviously the flavor from that sage sausage is in there as well. And that's how we make dairy-free sausage and gravy. And it actually tastes really good. This is a gluten-free because you use the arrowroot powder. The biscuits are not gluten-free. Those were full of gluten. So I just had my sausage and gravy over a piece of gluten-free toast. I had some gluten-free bread in the freezer that I toasted and pulled out and put it on top. But this is just, I don't make this very often. It's kind of a rare treat. But the kids really enjoy this. It's just something different to have. And lunch is just a bunch of snacks today. I made kind of a trail mix. There's a bunch of freeze-dried fruits in here, dried cranberries, dried raisins. There's some nuts and pumpkin seeds and shredded coconut. And then we just had some olives and pickles, some apple slices with some sunflower seed butter to dip them in, and some apple cider. And so the kids just come in and they were picking what they wanted. They were really full from the sausage and gravy in the morning, so they just had a light lunch, and that made them happy. For dinner here, I'm sauteing up a red onion, and I've got one of those cubes of garlic scape puree that I freeze, and I'm just kind of thawing that and cooking that up with the onion. I was terrible about thawing meat this week ahead of time because of sickness and just not being on my A game. So I'm working on thawing and cooking this meat at the same time with the onion. And to that we added some chopped carrots, and that's all going to cook up together. I'm also to this going to add the leftover sausage and gravy. I'm also going to add 1 can of tomato paste. Once again, I get this in bulk from Azure Standard. It's my favorite tomato paste. And then I'm going to add some pickled pepper juice and a couple of those peppers in there just to give some vinegar flavor. We're kind of making a homemade hamburger helper. I guess that's what I'm calling this. We have some rice penne pasta. Here's our hamburger helper mixture, and we're just going to get this all mixed together. Another kind of comfort food meal. It's been really cold this week, and we've all been fighting off some illness, so we just want some nice comfort food to keep us warm and fill our bellies. And this was a hit. This was a good meal. With all pastas, I usually get out the big jar of nutritional yeast, and the kids that want it will get some out and sprinkle it over the top as sort of like a Parmesan cheese flavor. You guys will have to excuse me. I'm struggling to get through this voiceover right now because I'm still have lingering coughing issues from sickness. So hopefully my voice doesn't sound too scratchy and terrible. I'm just trying to get through this. And then for dessert, we're having homemade hot cocoa and marshmallow fluff. That recipe is in last week's video. You can find that there. And Adam seemed to really enjoy his cocoa. He's so silly. Here is my lemon poppy seed muffin recipe. This makes 2 dozen muffins, so I just do it as is. I don't double it. And we're going to go ahead. It's all mixed up there. I used cashew milk. I used water-glassed eggs. And I used lemon juice instead of fresh lemons. I used preserved lemon juice. And then we're just going to bake these in the oven as it said in the recipe. And that's what we had for breakfast that morning. For lunch, I was not feeling my best, and Adam found all these random bags with just a few pieces of bread left in them. He found them up on top of the fridge as he was planning lunch. And they needed eaten up before they go moldy, so he pulled them down and got out the sun butter and jelly, and everybody had sun butter jelly sandwiches for lunch that day. They were fending for themselves. Thankfully, I was feeling better by dinner, and I could muster up the energy to make these salmon patties. It's a really easy meal. I like to make this usually in the summer, but I had some cans of salmon left in the back of the pantry, so I thought this is what I would make that night. So I'm going to do the 2 cans of salmon here. I've got my lemon juice in the bowl, some water-glassed eggs. This is onion powder because I don't have chopped green onions. This is almond flour. I'm using that in place of the coconut flour because Adam doesn't like the coconut flour. It messes with his stomach. We're using dill and we're using dry mustard. And then we've got our pink salt. And then I'm serving with it. This was in the back of my pantry. This is Hearts of Palm brown rice. My mother had gotten this for me to try when she dropped off some groceries sometime when I wasn't feeling very good. And I just hadn't made it yet. So this was the perfect time since I was clearing out the pantry of the canned salmon. Why not use up the Palm of Hearts rice? So everything goes into the mixing bowl and it's so easy. I just turn on the mixer and it gets it ready for me. And then I like to use a little biscuit cutter to form my patties into more uniform shapes. So I just put the biscuit cutter down and then press the patty mixture into it. I always do it on parchment paper because the patties can be kind of messy and can kind of stick to your cookie sheet if you don't use the parchment paper. Now to make this Hearts of Palm rice, it's really easy. All I had to do was add a couple tablespoons of oil to the pan, and then I just decided to season it with some of my Redmond real salt, organic seasoned salt. And so that was it. And all it had to do was be heated up. It was a really easy side dish to make. As our veggie side, I keep defaulting to a quart of canned corn plus some freeze-dried green beans and peas. The kids are probably sick of this. We've been having this as a side dish at least twice a week. And then I just add a little extra water to help rehydrate the freeze-dried vegetables, but it gets the job done. Just a quick meal, had some convenience food there with the heart of palm rice, but on a night when you're not feeling your best, anything that you can get on a plate that's home cooked for your family, you count it as a win. And they actually enjoyed this. Some kids eat it with ketchup, some kids eat it with mustard on their salmon patty. I think a few of them even had some tartar sauce. We had some tartar sauce in the fridge that needed used up. So it got the job done. Filled some bellies. And I knew that when I woke in the morning, I probably wasn't going to feel great and want to make a big breakfast. So that night, I decided to make some cinnamon rolls. Actually, I was going to make jelly rolls using my cinnamon roll recipe. And so the first thing I need to do is get some sugar all dissolved into a syrup. I'm using cashew milk and the sugar, salt. Here I've got some water, glassed eggs. And I use this little pan here. I'm going to put the milk, the olive oil, the sugar, and the salt in there. And I need that sugar to dissolve into a syrup, like I said. So we just kind of stir that around, get that dissolving. And then in the meantime, I can work on the rest of the ingredients. I need to get my yeast activated. And so I'm going to get out my big mixing bowl, get the yeast and the warm water in there, and get that activating. And once it's activated and kind of bubbling, I can add in my flour. I have my water glassed eggs. And then now that that syrup mixture is all done, I can also add that in. And then the mixer, thankfully, is going to do most of the work for me. I'm going to let it mix and knead, and then that'll be wonderful. I'm so grateful for these machines that make things easier, especially on a night when you're not feeling your best. So this whole shelf in my pantry is all different jams and jellies, and I'm just deciding which one I want to use for our jelly rolls. And what sounded good that night was pear butter. We're going to have pear butter rolls, so just 1 pint should do the trick. Got that off the shelf, and that'll be ready for when my dough is done. So here it's been kneading, and it's about done. We're going to get this covered and sit this in front of the wood stove and let that rise for about an hour. And then once it's all done rising, we can punch it down and get it all spread out with the rolling pin. And instead of putting your cinnamon roll mixture in, you're just going to pour your jam or jelly. I'm going to do this whole pint. Just pour it directly on my dough. And then I can take a spatula and just kind of spread it out so the whole surface is covered with the pear butter. Just like that. And then it can be a little messy to roll up, but that's fine. You just get it rolled up, you cut it into your pieces, put it in the fridge, and it will rise overnight. This is what it looked like after it rose in the fridge for a bit, and then I can just stick it directly in the oven. And I was so grateful that I had done the work the night before, and I had a breakfast all ready. There it is, all baked, and I didn't have to do any work that morning because I really wasn't feeling my best. But the pear butter rolls were definitely a hit. I normally would put a sugar glaze over the top of these, but since we're fighting off illness, I figure less sugar is probably better. They say sugar feeds illness, and there's more than enough sugar already in those rolls, so that'll have to do. No glaze for them that day, and they ate it just fine. For lunch, I'm going to make some refried beans and rice. I have a pound of bacon that I chopped up, and I'm just getting that all fried up in the pan. To it, I'm going to add 1 red onion. That's just going to fry in there with it. I canned some black turtle beans last week, and I wasn't satisfied with the results of one of the lids here. And anytime there's a questionable, even though the seal seemed perfectly strong, but see those dings, that I just don't feel comfortable with that. I feel like I'm going to end up with a seal failure in that. So if you at all question it, put it in the fridge right away and use those beans up. Don't put that on your pantry shelf, or you could end up with potentially a seal failure. So if there's ever any question, when in doubt, just assume that the seal is bad. So we're just dumping those canned black beans in with the bacon and the onion mixture, and those are going to fry down. We're going to add a little bit of cumin. We're going to add our salt, and then I have these couple of lemons left over from New Year's celebrations, and they need to be used up before they go bad. So we're going to squeeze that lemon juice over all of the beans. And here we go. There is our refried bean mixture. For toppings, we have our pickled peppers, our peach hot sauce, a little bit of salsa left over, and we have our homemade sprouts. We'll just mix that all up over some rice, and everybody can kind of make their own bowl. And there's what one of the bowls looked like. And my kids are loving the sprouts. I think that was their favorite part of this meal, so it was a good way to get some kind of fresh produce in them. The sprouts have lots of nutritional benefits, so so does everything else. The beans are good for them and everything else, but I really like that they liked those sprouts. All right, time to work on dinner. This was kind of thrown together last minute because I didn't do my meal prep. I've got 2 pounds of ground pork that I'm trying to thaw and cook at the same time right here. This is why it's important to thaw your meat ahead of time. And here I have some potatoes that I just chopped up, and we're frying those up. Simple. And then after I last posted about Old Bay seasoning, many of you told me you use it on everything, and so I'm going to go ahead and try that on the potatoes. And I'm trusting you guys who say that you put this on all of your food. So in the past, I've really only done it on either chicken legs or seafood. And so since I have it to use up, we're just going to start putting it on everything. I trust the judgment of you guys. And then, as I mentioned, I've been making the corn and the freeze-dried veggies quite often, so I have lots of just leftovers from different meals sitting in the fridge. We're going to put these together and add that to the sausage. And then I'm also going to make an apple crisp tonight. And once again, I'm ignoring the top half of my recipe, and I'm just going to double the crisp part at the bottom. I've got that all mixed up there. And then I emptied 2 quarts of apple pie filling into the bottom of my 9x13 pan here. And then I'm just going to sprinkle the crisp mixture on top of it and bake it on, I believe I did 350 for, I don't know, maybe 45 minutes. And then there you go. There's those extra veggies with the sausage. There's the potatoes with the Old Bay seasoning. Just a simple, thrown together last minute meal. I told you it was a rough week with meal planning. And when I don't make a plan or stick to it, I just kind of default to browning some meat, frying some potatoes, and this is what we end up with. But you know what? The kids don't care. It's a simple meal, but they like it. They all finished all their plates, and that's what matters. Food doesn't need to be elaborate and fancy. It just needs to get the job done. It doesn't hurt when you make an apple crisp to go with the meal. I think that makes every meal better. For Adam, Tabasco sauce makes every meal better. He puts it on just about everything. Tonight, he is also adding some kimchi to the top of his bowl of food. He's still working through that kimchi from New Year's, so he's so silly. I think he could eat it on just about everything. He just scoops it out and puts a big dollop of it on top, and I'm sure he's much healthier for it. Kimchi is very good for you. There's what that crisp looked like. Kids just scoop it out into a bowl and happy little campers. All right, Thursday morning, we're having a cherry cobbler for breakfast. And then I'm going to make some scrambled eggs using water-glassed eggs. But I do not trust my sense of smell right now because it's kind of off with the illness. So thankfully, Gabe was sitting there and he could sniff each egg as I cracked it open. And they were all good, thankfully. And then once again, putting that Old Bay seasoning into the eggs. We're just going to put it on everything until it's gone. So it actually tasted good. Thank you guys for the recommendation. It was good on the potatoes. It was also very good on the eggs. And as you can see, the water-glassed eggs scramble up just like fresh eggs. And that's what we had. A little bit of cherry cobbler, a little bit of scrambled eggs. Perfect way to start the day. There's some of my kids, of course, having ketchup on their scrambled eggs because that's how we like them. It's been nice having Adam home. Even though we've been sick, we've been enjoying his company throughout the week. All right, I'm going to work on some ice cream for the kids. I'm going to do 2 cans of this organic coconut cream. I'm going to add some frozen blueberries and some frozen blackberries. And then I added a little raw honey too, and we just put it in the blender and we're mixing all of that up. You guys know I don't measure, I just kind of guess. And that's what it looks like. Now, this ice cream maker went with my old KitchenAid mixer that broke, so it doesn't fit on my new one. I just used the bowl of it as what I pour this mixture into to put into the freezer, but I wasn't actually using the ice cream maker. All we're going to do is pour this blended mixture in. I'm going to put it in the freezer, and then I usually get it out once about a couple hours after I stick it in there, and I stir it up a little bit, and then stick it back in and let it freeze again. And then that'll be ready by dinner time tonight. Speaking of dinner, it was David's night to make pizza. Thank goodness I needed a little break from making meals because I'm not back to fully feeling like myself. So I love it when my little baker David makes pizza for me. It's such a blessing. And he puts onion, olive, pickles, anchovies, lots of wonderful toppings on there. And I was able to get some rest that night, get off my feet, and that was very, very helpful. A couple of the kids on this evening, John and Gracie, were not feeling 100%, and so I was busy helping to take care of them. And then the ice cream came in very handy for a couple of them that were having sore throats and fevers. Nothing like a cold treat to help bring your fever down. And I'm sure the raw honey in that was also very good for them and for their throats. So the ice cream was definitely a hit. This is our dairy-free version of ice cream, one of our versions. That night, my bulk citrus order came in. What wonderful timing! We got beets and organic dates on top of all of the citrus. This is my order that I place once a year, and the timing couldn't have been more perfect. I can now get my kids pumped full of this vitamin C and get them all healthy again. So I'll be showing you how I'm going to preserve all of this here in the coming weeks. Friday morning, we're going to have oatmeal, a nice quick breakfast. I'm going to show you how I add eggs to my oatmeal just to give it a little extra protein. So the key to doing this is to crack your raw eggs into it before it's hot. Just completely mix it around. I also have some cashew milk in here. So we're just going to get this thoroughly mixed. It's helpful when I set down the phone and use both hands to do it. But once I get that thoroughly mixed, when it cooks up, you won't even notice the eggs. If you don't thoroughly mix it, you'll end up with egg chunks. I'm putting in some apple cider that was just left over in the fridge, add a little apple flavor to it. We also did some cinnamon and some honey, and that was what we had in our oatmeal this morning. And then since we had that wonderful citrus, we're having grapefruit. I'm also making some organic throat coat tea for the children that needed it. Grateful that I had that in the house. One wonderful, easy way to serve children grapefruit is to use baby spoons. They're the perfect size to scoop out your little grapefruit sections. And so for my little ones who can't scoop it themselves, I just pre-scoop it for them and then hand it to them and they can eat it themselves. Now, my children don't mind the bitterness or the sourness of grapefruit, and this grapefruit was really ripe, so it was just perfectly delicious. But there used to be a time where I would sprinkle sugar on top, and then I quickly realized that they didn't need that. They didn't need the sugar. They'll eat it without it, as you can see, and no sense ruining a healthy food here by adding a ton of sugar. We eat enough sugar in our diet otherwise, as you guys know, so anywhere that I don't have to add sugar, then that is a bonus. Now, my kids call this gummy berry juice. I don't know how it started. I think there's a gummy bear show that they saw this on, but they like me to squeeze the leftover grapefruit into a cup, and then they call it their gummy berry juice. And so the little boys, every time they're done scooping out the meat of the fruit, they're like, "Mommy, Mommy, gummy berry juice." And then they love that. See, happy baby. And I just couldn't be more grateful for the timing of this. So it's getting them full of vitamin C. We're fighting illness through nutrition, no other supplementation. We're just trying to get as much vitamin C and bone broth and healthy foods into us as we can. So I'm also grateful for the older kids here who can scoop out their own grapefruit, and then they don't get their juice in a cup. They just squirt the juice directly into their mouth. So John's also eating a mandarin orange. So we're just as much citrus fruit as we can get into these kids this morning. That's what they were having for breakfast. And this was just, they were eating this while we were waiting for our oatmeal to cook. Adam's much better at squeezing out the gummy berry juice. He's got grip strength to get it all out in one squeeze. It takes Mom 4 or 5 squeezes to get it all out. So grateful for Adam's help, and so grateful to have him home this week. We were able to accomplish a lot of projects during the week because we weren't terribly sick. We still had energy to get up and work. So we did some outside projects this week. We did some indoor projects and some painting and things. So very grateful for his help and his time here at home. There's how that oatmeal turned out. And like I said, once those eggs are mixed in there, you don't even notice them. Baby's eating his. He will no longer let me feed him, so he has to be in charge of eating his own oatmeal. And then this was just a nice meal to warm everybody up before they head out for morning chores. It has been very cold in the morning, and so we need something that'll stick to their bones. Here's our leftover grapefruit peels. These do not get wasted. Our cows like to eat citrus peels. We also will feed them to the chickens sometimes. And then lunchtime on this day was eaten up because we were in the process of painting the kitchen. We decided since Adam was home, let's finish painting the kitchen. I had to pull all of my canning jars off of the shelves, pull everything out of the kitchen and everything get out away from the walls. But we got it done. It took us 7 hours. The kids were on their own. They just grabbed some snacks for lunch. And then by the time we were done painting, they were starving. They were like, Mom, Mom, we need dinner now. So I was just so happy with how my kitchen turned out. But I had to scramble to get something put together really quickly here when we were done. So here I took a couple ham steaks and I sliced them up, and I'm frying these in some olive oil with 1 raw onion. And then to that, we added some sliced carrots. Just going to get all those cooked up. We're adding frozen broccoli and frozen green beans. Just a big mix of veggies in here. And this was a super easy meal. I needed something really quick and I hadn't really planned ahead. So this was just what I came up with. Then I'm adding, we had a couple fresh eggs from the chickens that hadn't been used up that day. So just adding those in, mixing that around with the meat and the veggies. And then we had some leftover rice in the fridge from the beans and rice we'd made earlier in the week. So we're also just going to add that in and get that all mixed around. A little salt and pepper with that, and voila, we had dinner very quickly for these hungry kids. I decided to also make them some grape juice. I can my grape juice with the grapes in the jar, so all I have to do is strain it out. But canning it that way makes it very concentrated. So then I can just add some water to my pitcher here, stir it around, no sugar necessary. It's sweet enough without the sugar. And that is what we had to drink with our dinner. So there's how that rice mixture turned out. I decided to also have 2 quarts of canned pears as dessert with this meal. And there you have it. We're out of coconut aminos, which is what I would normally have on my rice. It's very sad. I did not prepare. That's the first thing I've run out of that I'm missing. Everybody else can have soy sauce. We still have a little soy sauce left in the house. But I am missing my coconut aminos during this meal. All right, friends, and that's it for this week. I look forward to sharing more next week. Hopefully on Thursday I'll have a video coming out that will share all of the ways I've preserved our citrus that we got. We do a bulk citrus order every January. Unfortunately, the timing of that falls during the Pantry Challenge. It's the one food purchase that I allow myself during the months of January and February, but it's also the only time of year I can get access to these wonderful prices and deals on the citrus. So I'll be showing you next week, hopefully, how I preserve most of that and how we're going to use that up. So look for that. And then next Sunday, Lord willing, I'll be sharing another video on next week's meals. So until then, I hope you're blessed. Have a great week, friends. Bye.